they don't get, or they get the clash together. What if the accuracy of the information is not updated and not sure? How to be sure? How could we be sure that the information are correct and accurate, and they don't get the clash? Sometimes you get from different parties the information, and then they don't get together in the right way. This is the question, and to whom goes the copyright of the information from different sites? Who is the owner of this information?
Martin, this is a question for you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll deal with the second question first on copyright. You recall in the recall in the CIC BIM protocol, one of those documents I mentioned, CIC BIM protocol, which contains legal framework, but that also specifically addresses the copyright issues. And that's why it's important to make sure the legal framework is right and to make sure the contractual documents are right, because if it's not, then you end up into issues about copyrighted data and things like that. But using a predefined document like the CIC BIM protocol, which is why it was created in the first place, helps you to address some of those issues. And what always surprises me is the number of people working on BIM projects but don't actually have not addressed any of the issues to do with contractual obligations, scope, deliverables, procurement routes, contractual obligations, and that's why I say one of the barriers to them is actually about procurement routes and understanding that, and there's not enough knowledge out there in the industry to deal with that, especially with some of the smaller projects. Some of the big government projects have that nailed because they've got teams looking at that. But the first question was about clash detection.
Yeah, yes.
About
different information and they don't match together.
Okay, so well, I guess there's two problems with that, and one of the key issues about setting up models is making sure that everybody's talking the same language and everybody has the same insertion points for the model, so everybody knows what is 000 for their project, and that is agreed up front, and that's why we have documents in the UK called the BIM execution plan, which should hold that information and how people deal with that. And a classic example of that is a friend of mine was telling me, it was for a big architectural practice. They changed the levels of the insertion points for the building. The building changed by a few millimeters. And the next minute they had a clash detection report coming back saying there's now 30,000 clashes in the model. And what had happened is somebody hadn't changed the furniture model insertion points. So all the chair legs in all the buildings were now sticking into the floor, and we suddenly had 30,000 clashes. And there'd not been that sort of sense check on, is there a problem with the insertion point? And then you move from that point, once everybody knows that they're talking about the same language and you've got the models all set up using the same protocols and same knowledge, then you move on to things about, well, is a clash a clash? And a clash is not necessarily a bad thing at a particular stage, like schematic design, early conceptual design. Clashes are good because it means that actually you've detected something that you're going to solve in the next stage. By the time you get to construction, clash is bad. You know, you should have solved all of those issues.
That means that you keep both information.
Yes, you should be.
From both sides.
Yeah, you need to be. Well, a clash just identifies something which you've then got to solve, and it doesn't mean that one person has the ability to solve that clash by themselves. You have to bring the people together.
By heritage, sometimes you keep information about the building date, when was it built, and then come somebody else and say 2 years later or earlier. So you have 2 years written, and you are not sure which is the correct
conflicting information about the same
information. Maybe both are not correct.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess in that case you have to find a way of of holding both data until you can agree which is the correct information. So you can then decide which is going to be correct. It is, and that's why it has to stay open until somebody resolves. That's a different type of clash, but somebody has to take responsibility for solving that. And maybe it's acceptable to have it open. Data building may be acceptable to have that open until you categorically know what it is. Sometimes you assign somebody whose responsibility is to go and solve that, either within a group or as an individual. But identifying clashes, you then need to identify the responsibility for solving that. And that's something that needs to be dealt with within the park. I don't know if anything is
any other views? Clash detection or avoidance, it has its own nature within HBIM. So that is also another type of collaboration and collaborative analysis and working together. So that's why actually this is a quite good specific research question we should actually address within that context. I think no one at the moment can give a true answer because it's not an answered question right now. So I think that's a quite valid question. So within HBIM context, I don't think within BIM, design and construction scope or spectrum, the clash detection may not be quite 100% is applicable to heritage context. So I think this is an important issue that we need to actually look into in our research program as well.
I think we can use we can make categories for the information. Category A is sure information, or we are sure about it, and then maybe other information we give it B because you are 50% sure. So to categorize the information itself.
Yeah, that could be
it's
one way forward.
One of the solutions.
Yeah. Any other questions before we finish off?
Actually, I believe that models supported by information is a very good tool which make decisions more flexible and more dynamic and more efficient. Talking about Cairo downtown, which is a project going on now. I'm the consultant for the government for this project. I'm following it since long ago, and actually it is a handmade project. Everything, all information are done not by computer, not by BIM, and with no equipment. And when we started documentation for this area, we did it by normal camera, no digital cameras, nothing related to technology. And it took long ago to document the area. It took about 6 years. And I'm thinking now, attending this workshop and another workshop earlier in Cairo, in Luxor, I can imagine how was it if I had or we had these tools at that time, and how much work could we have done if it was available. Showing you the project and how it is going on, and what do we expect after knowing about HBIM and the technologies available. So what could be the difference between both projects for the same area? We can say that recently experiencing a dynamic accelerating movement towards regeneration through restoration of buildings, especially building facades, with outstanding value and returning it to its originality and splendor, as well as streets, squares, and pedestrian paths development. In the framework of coordination carried out by the Cairo Governorate between concerned parties such as the National Organization for Urban Harmony, which was established in 2001 and is responsible for saving the modern heritage, not the antiquities and monuments, but the modern heritage of Cairo, which has been neglected for long time, about 60 years. Nobody wanted to take care for it, and it was totally neglected, and the young generation knew very rare about this area. And of course, the General Organization for Physical Planning, GOPP, and the Egyptian Company for Management of Real Estate Assets, which is the owner of about more than 100 buildings in this area, and the private sector and investment companies such as Ismailia, the owner of several properties in the region. Of course, depending also on the civil society, which played an active role in this project. The role and the efforts done by the government for conservation and management, putting a management plan for the area, depended on a sustainable project which called the value map and database. This is a sustainable project which put all information about values, symbolic and historical, and all information related to the value of the buildings and the urban tissue and the urban values and so on. All what we have is put in this project by GIS as layers, so it helps decision makers if they want to take a decision. They go just vertically through this map or these layers and can get all the information needed for any project. So it's a kind of a basic information system built. It is very much related to what we are talking about HBIM today. Of course, we put laws and regulations for protection because the law established in Egypt, that was in 1983, and it was related to the antiquities and monuments, and it didn't cover the modern heritage we have. Modern heritage in Egypt means heritage for 200 years. It's not just modern, it doesn't mean at all the 40 or 50 years heritage. It's much longer, since Muhammad Ali, the ruler, came and started modernization of his country. Also, economical and financial basis, that was the most difficult part of what they had to do and to solve, because the priority was not for heritage saving. Everybody says we have a problem in the financial problem, and it's not the time or the right time for dealing with heritage. And also we had to answer and to convince and to make it clear how heritage is a financial support and supply for any country, especially if the country is rich of heritage. And of course, many conservation projects were put the idea and the vision to start for saving the modern heritage. So Cairo downtown, which I will explain now, it's very complicated because it's not only significant buildings there, but we have a very modern and new urban tissue and street patterns which were not known at that time during the second half of the 19th century. So the urban tissue is part of what we want to save. And of course the way of life and the society who used to live in this area were different than in historical Cairo, for example. The traditional way of life was not the way people used to live in this area. Of course, the car was moving through this street pattern, and it was known and moving, and we had the modern traffic way during the second half of the 19th century too. Documenting the buildings in this area started, I started this by myself at 96, and this is what we have done. 6 students helped in documenting the buildings, building facades, and this was done by normal negative photos, and we had to make a lot of photos, more than you can imagine, and to print it just to get every detail, every architecture detail. So we could put the facades on paper again, and we could print it, and a big book was published, including about 400 or more heritage buildings in the area of only 700 fadel or acres. Other studies were done for each street. They were about 35 streets and squares. Every part was drawn. New and old buildings were documented, and all facades were drawn, and the skyline and the solids and voids, so we could read what it means. If you have the voids less than 50%, that means an old building, because they couldn't, by bearing walls, make wide openings and so on. And the modern buildings, which are new, you could recognize the big area of glass or voids in the facades. So this was a kind of analyzing what is going on in this area and all details in the urban tissue. Observing the critical cases and making enough studies about it, how to save these critical cases, and some buildings were about to be demolished because of severe problems. The first part of the project was the Alfi Street, which was turned to a pedestrian walkway, and so deteriorated as you see here, and it just turned to a pedestrian walkway without any development. And the building facades were deteriorated, and from the inside too, and so this was the case. And then coming to the facades, which were decorated by the windows of the shops, and a lot of overlapping parts or architecture parts with these decorations, and everybody used to do whatever he wanted to do. No information about the owners were available. It took a lot of time to know who are the stakeholders, who are the owners, who is living there, and what activities and uses for the buildings. And of course, we had another problem. We didn't know about the services in the area, because a long time ago it was done very unorganized and very random. So we had to follow all cables, all sewage net and everything which were in that area. That was the condition. And then, coming to the project, the drawings and analyzed studies, giving all information and redrawing the buildings because no references were available at that time, and all ideas and how to develop the pedestrian walkway to save people and to encourage some activities for the restaurants and cafes in that area. So it was designed for people in the middle, and then both sides, including an area for the activities as an extension for the shops, and in between the area for activities and the walkway here in the middle, we designed the area for the services under the street. These were sometimes we had to solve problems on the spot because a lot of information were not known, and of course dealing with the people, asking them by a questionnaire what they want in their area and what activities they want to encourage and so on. And we got a lot of good answers, which were very helpful. And then the project itself, how it turned to a developed pedestrian, and this was the result at the end. Of course, you will ask, no trees, no greenery here, but the trees were planted, but we choose a kind of trees which have green leaves in summer to give shading, and in winter they get rid of their leaves. This was the square ending at the end of the pathway. It was so random, planted, and this was the design and under structure and after finishing. And the building facades were restored, and this was the end product. And as you see, the traffic is cutting the square in the middle, but as a design, the whole circle is continuous, not cut. At night, people were very happy to get at that area, and for the first time, a lot of people knew about the buildings existing there. Another square in the old time, and then deteriorated, and the drawings done, and then after restoration. This is one of the most beautiful buildings, and it was built at the beginning of the 20th century by a well-known foreign architect, William Roberts. And after restoration, as you see, all decorations here were removed and back to the stone look. The stones are back. Another building, which is very famous, Robert Davis building. And then at the end, after restoration, and for example, one of the missing information here about the stones at the facade, the finishing material, because when it has been listed according to the law for protecting the modern heritage, it was red color, and everybody thought that the stone is its original like this. And when we took one piece of the stones and brought it to the lab, they proved that these are multi-layers of painting a long time. So we tried to remove the painting, and we found out that the stone itself became very fragile and could be damaged, and it was a big risk to do this. So we kept the color from that time when it was listed, and we repeated the color, the reddish color again. This is one of the most beautiful buildings at that area, and how it looks, and then after restoration. So we are getting back the beautiful buildings again, very significant, and every building is unique. You don't find more than the design, not more than once. And these are 4 buildings together, built by Antonio Lasciac, the famous Italian architect, and under restoration. And the Abdin Square, where the Abdin Palace exists here. And it was so deteriorated, the surrounding and the environment was used as a parking area. And then it was developed, and all the buildings surrounding the place or the area was restored according to the original styles, architectural styles, and how it was. This is how it looked before the project started. Abdin Palace here, and the Cairo Governorate, which was part of the palace, and then all this area was transformed to a beautiful open space for people who now used to go there, and to children go to for play and so on. They enjoy the area which never existed for people. An Art Nouveau building facade, the buildings before and after. And it was very difficult to convince people to support the project, because no concern, and they didn't see the beauty of the place before we started work. Just attached to Tahrir Square, one of the old buildings after restoration. Here, another one. So, and Shawarbi Street, another project, pedestrian walkway, how it looked. The buildings are deteriorated, and now we have the information for this buildings and for the services and so on. All this are put together now, but it took a lot of time. It could be done in faster and in a better way if we had more information. So after finished, it finished just this week. It will be opened. The opening will be at when I'm back. So people came back to the area. So the HBIM is defined as a modeling technology. It contains all the elements of the building, such as the floors, spaces, walls, doors, windows, and a large number of attribute information associated with each of these elements. Can you imagine if we had all this information at that time, 15 years ago? Among heritage communities, there is increased importance on modeling, documenting, and representing buildings with intelligent information enhanced models. HBIM, I should have mentioned HBIM, not BIM only. I just made it before I started my lecture to correct it. For an existing or historical building, can be used as a documentation tool for conservation work, retrofitting, renovations, or as a tool for performing building analysis. A historical window and entrance located in Cairo downtown, one of the buildings which I just showed you now, captured by default camera with close equal distances to refine the model with the best accuracy for details. Actually, this work is done to be published as a result for the first workshop which was held in Cairo by Dr. Mohammed Mahdi and team. 3D point cloud model generating from images, processing after cleaning and fixing mesh issues and exporting to the HBIM platform. The main motivation for smart information, enhanced models is the wide variety of applications that the information-rich models can be used for. This includes applications for documentation and management of buildings, along with great capabilities for energy, structural and economic analysis of buildings. HB modeling phase on left, shown the forms used in creating historic families. On right shows the work plane base element while sketching the object on Revit. Final model of historical window and entrance door after adding texture, material and finishes. Coming to the conclusions, I would like to say here that the work presented shows that it is required and possible to develop a high-quality 3D model able to connect geometrical, historical survey with descriptive thematic databases. A centralized HBIM will serve a comprehensive data set of information about all disciplines, particularly for restoration and conservation. The use of laser scanning and photogrammetric can record very high and accurate levels of detail in the field for heritage documentation. HBIM integration with historic facility management can lead to more accuracy in documentation and record keeping. It also gives access to preventive maintenance, modeling, asset and disaster management for more preservation of our heritage sites. Required information for our work is historical information, of course, and here comes sometimes you get wrong information, so you have to be very careful in taking this information for granted. Heritage values, very important because it is reflected on the priorities of conservation, with which building you should start, with which part of the city you should start. It depends on the heritage values existing. And here the value map helps a lot in taking decision. Ownership and stakeholders should be known because you are sure you deal with these people. Users and efficiency, originality, how much original in the area, in the building, which is original and which is added and so on. Listed by law, number 144, put in 2006, we are dealing for first priority with the buildings listed according to this law. So this is the start, and then later will come for the new deteriorated buildings. Listed by category A, B and C, so first priority is for category A, of course, and coming down to the other categories. Physical and structural conditions should be well analyzed, so you can take the technical advice and you can put the right decisions about it. History of building maintenance, which is unknown, totally unknown, nobody knows about it, and table of related information should be added for each building and each area. So we have a good reason for applying HBIM. Convincing owners, you have to have a tool to tell people why. why we are doing this, why is it one of our priorities. Stakeholders and donors to support expenses for restoration, of course. Affording sustainable maintenance for heritage buildings, arranging conservation priorities and plans, saving memory and image of historical city, which is first priority for myself, establishing a comprehensive and integrated database serving conservation aims. So at the end, I would like to say that we are looking forward for all tools helping for saving our heritage, especially the modern heritage. And now it is the right time to apply HBIM as a tool for saving this heritage. We are here to discuss how could we benefit of these workshops. How could we get into coordination to do our best for helping doing this faster, more safe, more accurate, and thank you for listening.
Heritage and building information modeling from another aspect. It's aspect of the users, not the user as architects or technicians, but the user as public, and how this will affect them, how this will raise their awareness about the cultural heritage. Is it applicable? And how we can build a framework for using these tools to enhance the awareness of the people of the cultural heritage. The project I will talk about is in Jeddah, which is in the Middle East, as you know, in Saudi Arabia. It was an experiment done within the students of Salford University to experience how the awareness they have about their cultural heritage and how can we raise this awareness through these technologies. This Jeddah now is transforming. It's not the old Jeddah, as you know. It all have a high-rise building, have modern streets, and have different aspects of the old Jeddah, which looks like this. This area is this very small area restored in Jeddah, and all the other areas are new areas. Most of the young people doesn't know anything about it. They don't visit it, and they don't interact with it. They just go into technologies and mobile phones and have all this globalization aspects of living. So we have cultural heritage, we have identity. It might be lost in the globalization age. So what we can do to preserve this, we have two kinds of heritage, which is tangible heritage. It's the physical sites and physical aspects of the heritage, and the intangible cultural heritage, which is reflected in the traditional songs and traditional activities and clothing and everything attached to the heritage itself. Why we use digital technologies for cultural heritage preservation or cultural heritage awareness? The recent research environmentalists argued that artifacts hold memories through their significance, rather than its discovery and release through professional research. It's not about the physical side, it's about the stories attached with the site, about the habits, about how we lived, about how we want to live, about the social interaction we want to be. We don't want to be a copy of any other culture. We want to preserve our culture and also have this globalization aspect. Due to this argument, it's encouraged that traditional cultural buildings should be used and understood as a tool to bring about social change, rather than letting society and social process shape those buildings. Digital era and cultural heritage. We have a lot of technologies now embedded in the documentation and representation and dissemination of cultural heritage. The documentation phase includes existing remains from site survey to epigraphy, representation from historic reconstruction to cultural sites to visualization level. Each level have a lot of technology embedded in, have a lot of expertise to work within, and then have a lot of product. Dissemination from immersive networked worlds to in situ augmented reality. If we go through these phases together, digital era and cultural heritage, we have the documentation phase. We can use the photogrammetry, as we said, and laser scanning, drones, and GIS to bring out all the documentation required for a certain site, a physical, existing, tangible heritage. And also the representation phase, which included in many Autodesk many products. They can be visualizing 3D modeling and have animation and have also real-time imagining, like software like Maya and Revit and any other information. And also the dissemination phase. Digital technology provides excellent opportunities for enabling the public access to large quantity of digital and interactive information through simple, easy access to application from different levels. For example, if we go to the heritage site, we have different applications we can use through the site. Mobile application to track our path through the area. Also, information embedded within this mobile application. Also, we can have the augmented reality, which we can interact and see what the building would look like in real. And also, we have a web-based virtual data in addition. We can create from the information collected and documentation we have, and a web-based digital virtual museum. We can have this interactive experience through avatars moving within the site while we are sitting in our place. Also, we have this personal mobile application. We can interact together all the time. We're holding our mobile, our iPads, and we can access any site directly from our in-hand mobile application. To investigate this issue, we have a questionnaire within the Jeddah people and within Jeddah University for girls, because they don't go, they rarely go to visit such sites. We have 3 phases for this questionnaire. The first level is about context awareness, how they perceive the context of the heritage context. And the other levels is the mobile usages, how frequently they use their application on the mobile and how they can interact with it. And the third level is how the impact of using such technology, of raising the awareness for this cultural heritage site. For example, if you see the charts, many of them have interest in visiting the heritage site, but they don't do so. And also, many of them have knowledge of existing such heritage sites, but they didn't visit it also. The accessibility of historical sites, it's about 50% have the accessibility to go there, and 40 or 30% have no accessibility to visit existing sites. And the cultural values attached with this site, they find it significant, and they find it also need marketing, because a lot of them doesn't know anything about it. The other phase of the questionnaire is about mobile usage. We find that 50% or 80% we find frequent use of the mobile application to acquire information, and about also 90% use web-based for acquire information. That means that information mainly depends on the technology, not about just visiting the site. I have to have information all the time. And the last part was how to find the impact of improving such awareness through digital technology. We find that about 70% agree that if they use the technology, they have more awareness of the cultural heritage site. That would lead us to the term virtual heritage, which we were looking forward to have it on such site. We have also the mixed reality experience, which can happen inside the site and also through the web and also through the mobile application. Through storytelling, through gaming experience, we can build an information system that can be taught to our children about their heritage through these applications. And we have the different levels of awareness within the Open World Museum, as we call JOWM. For the tangible heritage and context awareness, the context awareness as tangible heritage could be achieved through the following. actual context awareness through site visits, presented three-dimensional context within virtual heritage domains, the virtual context within the gaming experience they could have, virtual context awareness through the avatar experience on web-based virtual museums, virtual tours, mobile application, through mixed reality application, the actual historical presence of historical sites through augmented reality application. All this can give us a context awareness. The intangible cultural heritage, which is most important, because this is what have been lost through the past few years. The intangible heritage awareness for public could be experienced on all the levels of the interaction. Awareness of the historical information attached to individual sites that could be accessed through direct information on the site, storytelling application through headphones and mixed reality application, augmented reality, web-based information through virtual museums and avatar experience using mixed reality and augmented reality application. For this, we just created, I'm not sure why it's part of this. I will try to, can I get back to it?
Yes, okay.
Just open it. Yeah. Sorry for the... I hope this is clear now. This is the framework for creating an open wall museum for Jadra, for example, or for any cultural heritage sites. We have categorized four technologies used for some in documentation and in representation and in dissemination. We have different levels, and we have both cultural heritage, tangible heritage, and intangible heritage. And the tangible heritage could be expressed through the technology in documentation and also in dissemination. And the intangible heritage could be perceived through the level of representation. Also, we have categorizing for user experience. The first level is situated on-site technologies, which include augmented reality, avatar, mixed reality experiences, and mobile application. And also on the second level, web-based like virtual museums, and also for the final, the interactive personal application. It could be in gaming experience, it could be in storytelling, it could be in mobile applications that we handed within everyone. So what we are hoping that these technologies give a high level of communication with the public, easy for access, instant availability for information, awareness of intangible cultural heritage. But the question is, and the argument is, those technologies disconnect us from original context, or it brings us much more closer to our cultural heritage. That's a question to have the answer. Thank you.
The question may not be relevant, so it's your discretion. Either you want to vote or we can do another option. Or, So the first question is to help us identify which industry sector would you like to associate with.
So just click once, okay?
So 10 seconds. So
just give time. Let's give enough time. So first of all, let's see the background, okay, from which background they're coming, and then so we can make sense of those first answers to those further questions.
After closing this session, what now?
You want to read? So please identify your background. So we have first academic researcher, second is infrastructure sector, and the third one is building construction sector. Fourth is another IX sector, fifth is IT sector professional, and sixth is consultant, and seven is other. Just click one of them from the clicker and you'll see the results.
Okay, so I think that's it.
So please,
You will be clicking.
can you see what comes in all?
Okay.
No, see?
So almost half of
Is it
the audience.
all it is not easy?
Okay, I think we have some people reserved in this one. Okay, go on. Second, these are the lead questions now. So, right, so the polling is all coming out. So, what do you think is the current maturity in highway sector, in BIM, in BIM use? So from a BIM implementation, BIM use point of view, what do you think the highway sector is actually, what level of accuracy of maturity has at the moment? So one is BIM level 0, the second option is BIM between level 0 and level 1, and the third option is BIM level 1, and fourth is between level 1 and level 2, fifth is at level 2, sixth is between level 2 and level 3, seventh is level 3 and beyond. So,
So just to give you an idea, level 0 would mean just very basic CAD usage. Level 1 would mean BIM usage, but not to a level of integration, and the process is not being clearly defined. Level 2 would involve a good bit of use of BIM to support different processes and using it for things like clash detection and avoidance. And level 3 is the step beyond, where there's complete data transparency and integration of the data with other systems. So what, based on our discussions this morning, where do you see the sector lies?
So the polling is open now, so please vote which option you think is the right for highway sector.
Okay, so I will close this poll in 10 seconds.
Do you need more time? Has everyone voted now? I think done. Yes, yes. So between level 1 and level 2, I mean 37% that's between level 1 and level 2. I think that's because of tenants actually. So,
Yeah.
could be, yes. And also, so second majority is 28% between level 0 and level 1. Just start printing. Okay. So, any comments on?
Derek or Phil, if you have got any comments on that?
Yeah, I think the highway sector in terms of local authorities is very on the zero. I don't think there's much happening in that area at all. The Smart Motorway programme does have a number of projects which are very fairly early stages. I would say they're sort of 1, 2. One of the biggest challenges for the highway sector on the infrastructure capital side is finding out that the ground information, the communication cable, power cable, etc., which weren't properly recorded at the time of construction. Although they are using photogrammetric and laser techniques to model the structures, and for a number of years High-res England were using LiDAR to produce a GIS model, which is quite a sophisticated model. Some of the contractor scans for Costa and Caribbean are using lean and last final type systems with the model.
Yep.
So I would say pretty early days, some barriers.
Okay, that's good. Phil, you come from Germany, and I would like to have your view how things are.
Yeah, sure. I totally agree with the statement. So I think that there is actually extreme potential there because the highway sector itself is highly standardized. So it's really different to this building industry where you have lots of different regulations all over the world. But I think at the moment it's not really high, but I think there is lots of interest from the construction industries to really go beyond what's possible right now. So before they were like grasping on, having all the techniques, but now they kind of go into autonomous vehicles, really like crazy stuff where in the other sectors you don't kind of imagine what they have because of the standardizations. They can go that deep. So autonomous construction robots or something like that is something which is more down the ground, more further away than autonomous vehicles in the construction sector.
Yeah, I know in the States, I think it's one of the universities in the States, and we've got an organisation which is producing robots for construction. It is a bit like my comment about Einstein's famous quote about fairy tales. I think that fairy tale would have been autonomous vehicles 20 years ago. Maybe one of the fairy tales is going to be some form of robotics in construction, particularly a very dangerous environment that road workers find themselves, particularly in the motorway network and elsewhere. High-res England sadly lost one of the traffic officers a few weeks ago in a crash in the M6. But routinely, sadly, we're losing road workers. So some sort of robotics would be quite interesting in the future.
I think increasing the capacity of the network is a key constraint, and there are a lot of parallel developments in the automobile sector. Also, the mobile telephony has matured quite a lot, and also the information for the road network. So all of this would come together to optimally utilize the infrastructure possibly. Okay, so we move on to our next question, which is essentially a repeat of the same question, but with a heritage flavor.
So we're asking the same question now about the heritage sector. Please vote again. What is the maturity of BIM users in the heritage sector?
Hello, Bruce. Question for you. We couldn't hear you very well.
Pardon?
We couldn't hear you very well.
Okay, sorry, maybe we can sorry, so we are we are asking the same question. What is the BIM maturity use for heritage sector? And then please choose the right options according to you from the list given on the screen.
Okay, so I'm closing the poll now, so if you have not voted, just do it quickly.
Okay, so the majority thinks that 33% thinks it's actually between level 0 and level 1. So, just starting off, okay. And 23% thinks it's level 0, nothing to do with BIM. 15, 13, and 10% just goes, in a staggered way going down. So yeah, makes sense. So any comments from the floor, from the stage?
Same as I was talking about heritage earlier, I think I'm going to make a comment. I did actually give you a bit of a sort of a curveball answer earlier when I said that I'm talking in terms of English heritage and historic England, we were sort of between sort of level 1 and possibly 2, but thinking about it, level 0 is like the sort of all of the data sets that have been gathered traditionally, that are sort of stored in sort of archives. Level 1 is the sort of semi-structured information that has been gathered using sort of CAD-based systems. And if you go to the archive in Swindon, you know, we've got thousands, if not millions, of data sets that relate to heritage down there that probably fit between level 0 and level 1. In terms of level 2, which is what we're aiming for this year, I think in reality, I think I'd agree with John Edwards, there's very little out there that we're probably amongst the scale there. And I think there are reasons behind that, you know, that we talked about. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to money.
Personally, I think our expectation is well beyond what is either the technology or the culture is able to deliver. I mean, what we have to remember, if you just look at the state of research, maybe even like 5-10 years ago, in the construction industry, it was essentially interested in pretty pictures. All of a sudden, we are shifting to interested in information, and all of a sudden our expectation is, you know, very, very high. We expect too much of the technology. I think it will eventually deliver, but this is the challenges are high, as we heard this morning, and probably for the heritage sector it's even more difficult, because it's, you know, essentially this software has been designed for very neat, very ordered work, which is intuitive in comparison to the heritage sector, which is very messy and very unstructured, you know. So I think it will take time, and I think we have to be patient that eventually it will happen.
I think several things that relate to what people just said. First of all, that Highways England have got a LiDAR-based GIS that's very effective and gives them geo-referenced information about the whole of their asset base. And we don't have something like that except in very limited instances, for anything to do with heritage, and we really need that. I think we have it on specific sites like Scottish Heritage or Historic England, but we don't have it for the majority of the buildings that, for example, Professor Saher showed us, which are in desperate need. It's that wider context, more than just the 2% of listed buildings, that we need records for, that we can make sensible decisions about, and we don't have that information yet. And we don't have the cost-benefit analysis that John Edwards referred to show us why we should get it, and until there are clear economic drivers to show its importance, I don't think we're going to have it. The only thing I think offers a glimmer of hope is that, for example, Google in the States are now offering a mapping process to work out the best elevations that people use to put solar on. And so there are tools coming along and possibilities of remote sensed information, rather like LiDAR, that offer promise for the future for how we can get that geo-referenced information without having to go through all the town hall archives and find all the old planning drawings and things. That's all.
Yes. One of the number of building blocks for lean deployment, strategic lean deployment, which they can be used in Highways England, is a benefits framework. And I guess it's a question that we're going to come up later on in the conversation, but I think there's a real research opportunity to delve into the benefits of BIM. The barrier, one of the barriers of deploying BIM in the industry more generally, will be what's in it for me. I mean, companies are in the construction industry often run at very low margins, sometimes 5% profit. They're cash flow sensitive, so they put less than 0.5% into research in UK construction companies. Very low levels of interest in research. But I think what might benefit the BIM and also the lean deployment would be some research into the benefits. The data we have in Highways England and lean for the supply chain is that for every pound that we spend investing in lean, we get £30 back. And we've got hard evidence for that. That's just not me making up a story. That's the reality. So I think the same thing needs to be done with BIM. I've only heard one or two of the speakers touch on benefits. And I think we need to know hard evidence of the benefit to convince industry, otherwise we'll just keep looking at it.
Maybe one point which is also interesting is that I think the benefit system is, I think, a great approach. So when I now look at Singapore, for example, they have this database where people submit their proposals online. So it's not anymore going like to official entities and handing in like documents. So it's basically uploading your model. And if you refurnish your home or redesign something, what now is happening actually in the industry that you have as-built control. So what you do is you laser scan before, then you do the building, and then you scan again if that what has been built is correct. And I think this is also a great approach where this benefit system could be a very interesting side of it to kind of have, crowd approach that people start to document everything coming on, because buildings need to be refurbished and need to be kept alive, basically.
Yeah, just adding that a little bit. One of the issues we found in House England was it's a cultural issue within the construction industry. Because of the very strong competitive nature, we're very often unwilling to own up to or give information about a particular benefit, even although it's a very little use to anyone else. There's a lot of barriers to opening up. So we had to do a lot of work. In fact, right at this moment, there's a lot of work going on to hoover up the benefits for this year's programme, because when I left, we had a significant benefits target every year. And finally, in House England's case, they're now a quasi-regulated organisation. They have a monitor, not a regulator. The monitor now expects no cost avoidance to be added into the benefits. They've got to be real cashable savings. And that's going to be quite tough, because very often you don't know the cashable savings or efficiencies until the end of the project. And also, there's lots of benefits other than cash that are very powerful as well. And that's one of the things in the framework we include. But I have to say, we were pretty poor at picking those up in the name of cash.
That might be, sorry, I just, I think it's becoming spin. What's interesting, there's an approach in Germany, actually there's an insurance company, so if you build something new, you get benefits in insurance if it's BIM built. So I think those kind of benefits is totally stimulating the industry.
Yes, and I think we should. Thank you very much. Okay, next question, please. Okay, I think we already touched upon this question. So it's what do you see as a key benefit? Huh?
We have to skip it. This is the one.
Is this the one?
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you think being able to create the most value in highway life cycle? A is pre-design investment decisions for better decision making through data analytics. Option B, design phase. Option C is construction phase for the 5D BIM. Option D is maintenance, asset management, and option E, enabling smart motorway concept. So the question is, where do you think BIM level 2 create the most value in highway life cycle management? Please start clicking.
Okay, so I'm closing the polling now. And let's see. Okay, so the option E is not visible here, which is.
Can someone help?
I can see it here, it's 5%. So it's 5% here. So I think the view is quite clear. It's primarily the maintenance or asset management, which is cited as one of the key areas of application and gradual breakdown. Any views from the panel or?
Any views on that? Anything? Any views from the floor? So we think that will most level 2 BIM will mostly be beneficial for 37% says maintenance and asset management. Yes, yes.
I don't necessarily agree with the findings here. The reason being that we've got to have a dose of reality. The reality is that more than 95% of the highways network, particularly local authority network, has no modelling whatsoever. The only modelling that's going on in terms of BIM levels are new projects. Immingham, the M6, 15 to 18 is about to start, it started this week. They'll be doing BIM. And the benefits are very small when you compare to the opportunity. So those very small areas, relatively small, will go into the asset database. And also, Highways England already have extensive databases of payments, status, quality, etc. So there's databases of drainage, which are very poor at times. I think it's in theory, I think it's a very powerful area, and I understand that people voted for it. The reality is, there's no way we're going to get it in the near future. We will get big improvements in the design area, and things like planning in the future, things I mentioned in my talk.
Yes.
It's a reality check.
I think that's interesting, Derek. Yes, you're right. Because, for example, if you link this question with the previous one, previously people were actually saying that what BIM level for highways was like level 0 to level 1, somewhere around that range. So pardon? Okay, sorry. Okay, no. If you actually interpret this the answer and what Derek said in his comments with the previous question, the what level BIM in highway sector in terms of maturity point of view, and the generally majority says actually level 1, isn't it? Or around level 1 or between level 1 and level 0. So what do we do at level 1? We actually do modeling. Modeling for what? For design actually, isn't it? So this is where we start. If you think logically, the logical process, it's about process as well. So in relation to the answer with the previous question, and I agree with you. So the most valuable, because if we are actually level 1 in BIM implementation for highway, where we do modeling for design, okay. So I think the most valuable outcome, should actually come from the design phase, I believe, design and planning. That's my personal view. So any other, it could be wrong. I don't know if anyone would like to say anything on that. Yes, Limit.
I think the value of BIM depends on the task, the decision task at hand, So if you are at early design stage, I think that's where I see the value. I think what we have forgotten to ask, and I think this is what, with the BIM revolution, is like information costs money. Information is and at the end of the day, who's paying for it? If you look at the evidence currently, where BIM projects are implemented is either by large contractors, and most of them are bearing the cost for various reasons, or for large clients. The bulk of the industry is just watching the scene and waiting probably the storm to disappear or to fizzle one day. So I think this is what I think BIM is beneficial for all the phases. It's not, but at the end of the day, it's the issue, and I think Derek has raised it earlier. This is an industry which is low productivity, struggling most of the time, and we are expecting that the implementation happens overnight. It won't happen until the business case for BIM is made.
I don't think people appreciate the status of some of the major contractors in the UK financially. It's well documented at Balfour Beatty. We're almost taken over by Carolean because of their financial position. They lost their chief executive, Milton. There's a number of people who've gone and board. So Balfour's is just an example. I think there's a number of others, I won't mention who they are, who are struggling from a financial point of view. So unless the client pays, they will not take the initiative to do it, and if it's going to cost them money to do it. It has to be somewhere the client pays the
need to do it.
Yeah, it's a reality, unfortunately.
And I think the point information is also really interesting. So there's a couple of developments which are happening actually right now, and I think this is something which is truly amazing, is that large companies actually offer to open source their content. So just to put some numbers behind this, there is a company who put about 2.5 million in development of that content, and they're thinking about open sourcing in order to push BIM into the industry. I mean, clearly there are some thoughts behind doing this, so it's not just we're doing this for the common good. But I think these are some things which are in that point really amazing if you kind of compare what's happening. So information is, I think, will be there, and then it's just a question of how to attach it there.
So if anyone from the floor want to join in, please.
I don't know whether the question was phrased very well. Because given that no one is at BIM level 2 in the highways industry, the question is what do you really think BIM level 2 would create most value? And I think the answer to reflect that.
That's a good question. Yeah, that's quite good.
Thank you. Next question, please. So, yeah, basically we have the same question for highway sector now, sorry, for heritage. Can you please vote with the clickers? So, where do you think the BIM level 2 create the most value in the heritage life cycle? So, let's cast the voting.
A should be start by investment decisions, better decision, without pre-design. Because you have already the heritage existing, you don't pre-design, you don't have a pre-design.
Yes, you're right.
Let's see the results.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's similar to the previous one. So option A is the most, popular one. So refurbishment, retrofitting, 4D, 5D BIM, energy simulation, and monitoring. So I think these are the main justification, isn't it? So using BIM for heritage could be a bit simple question to answer. But any comments from the stage or floor?
I think it should be as much related